right, y'all. Welcome back and happy Tuesday. Today we're going to be breaking down Tennessee's defense versus Oklahoma's offense. I know a lot of folks are worried about this matchup. I was too before I started to watch more film on them. And what I realized is, man, yeah, they have a good offense. They got some good playmakers. It's going to be a tough matchup. But they have some holes inside of their offense. It's not going to be the toughest matchup that Tennessee's faced so far this year. I think that was Arkansas. But there's a lot of similarities within how the offenses want to operate, where they want to make you play out in space. They have a mobile quarterback. But, I mean, Arkansas everywhere, maybe outside of wide receiver, it was better than Oklahoma is. So, that's definitely positive. And then also Arkansas' scheme, like their passing scheme, their running scheme, is a lot more difficult to game plan for than Oklahoma's is. And then too, man, we've got some young linebackers that have been playing more. I think that they've been playing well. They're a lot better out in space. We didn't so much have that, as much whenever we played Arkansas. And in the little spurts that the young guys did play, we saw that they played well. So I'm feeling pretty confident with this matchup. Of course, we're going to be breaking everything down with Oklahoma's offense. But then at the end of the video, I want to tell you what I feel like Tennessee's defense can do to find the most success in this matchup. And then later on today, maybe around 12:30, maybe like 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be going live for the watch party like we did yesterday, just watching Oklahoma's offense versus Ole Miss, because that's the most recent game. And I want to show you some things that they've done well, some things that they've done poorly, like the operational stuff, what they're trying to do, so on and so forth. But hopefully y'all can join us for that. And please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and get started. So with the talent breakdown, 24/7 Sports says on paper, Tennessee is the more talented defense versus Oklahoma's offense. We have 27 blue chip caliber players to their 22. You could take that with a grain of salt or, whatever. But I think that Tennessee can match up well versus Oklahoma in a lot of spots. So this is their two deep on offense. All the red is their offensive line, the white's their tight ends, yellow is their quarterbacks, blue is their skill players, so running backs and wide receivers. So with their offensive line, pretty good size. I think that that's one of the weaknesses to their offense. It's not great. They have two freshmen playing at offensive tackle who played a lot more last week versus Ole Miss than they have over the course of the year. They've been rotating 71 in at left tackle and then 66 in at right tackle. I'm not sure if they rotated in barely any, if at all, last week. And I'm hoping that that's what they want to do versus us, because those freshmen will struggle versus our defensive ends. There is no question about that. So outside of that, y'all, their tight ends, their starter there, he's 6'2", 233. We'll talk more about him later, but smaller guy, but he's almost like a big wide receiver. As far as quarterbacks, I actually think that the backup might be better. But their starter, he's a dual threat. He can throw it. He has a good arm. He can throw on the run pretty well, not super great, but he's not going to be nearly as mobile. Doesn't have nearly as strong of an arm as Taylor Green did. So with their running backs there in blue, their starter number 6, he's a freshman. I'd say he's like an average SEC running back. We'll talk about him some more. That backup, I'm hoping that they don't try to play him because he's got some skills. Obviously, he's 240. He's a big dude. If they play him more, that could help their running game to get going. And then with their wide receivers, a lot of small guys starting for him. Think about Steve Spurrier back in the day, right? He had those small wide receivers that they're tough to cover. But also, I think physically you should be able to kind of like manhandle them, even though they are strong. They are some dogs. But we're going to talk more about them as well. So let's move on to the stats, and we can see the strength of schedule on top of each team. Tennessee's at 21, Oklahoma's at 22, and then we can see everything else. So Oklahoma's offense is winning in most of these categories. The numbers really don't wow you outside of their red zone offense, which is number 1 in the country. I think it's tied in first place with maybe one or two, several other teams. But Tennessee's red zone defense, it looks pretty bad. We have to do a lot better there. I think that is one of the places that Coach Banks can help us out at more. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't need to be going man coverage. We don't need to be, especially going to cover 0. That's just not going to work for our personnel. We gotta get that figured out. But Tennessee is winning as far as the sacks generated versus the sacks that they're giving up. So hopefully it's gonna, the pass rush are gonna come back this week. It's been bad for the last couple of weeks. And then rushing wise, Tennessee's rushing defense is better than their rushing offense, but same thing, especially last week. Our defensive tackles really got pushed around. Can't have that. If we're good up front, I really think that over the past couple of weeks, our front four is what's taken so many steps back. Really, last week, our second level took some steps forward. Maybe not so much with the secondary, but that's what we need to do, is just be better up front. If we do that, Tennessee's going to be in a great spot in this game. And then turnovers. Tennessee's done a great job of generating turnovers and also scoring off of the turnovers. I think that we might need that in this game. Obviously, it never hurts. So moving on to their key players, there's 5 guys here. I maybe could have put that backup running back in here, but he's not really, to me, he's not really like a key player heading up to this point, but he could turn into that in this game. So number 1, man, quarterback, number 10, John Mateer, 6'1", 224, redshirt junior on the year. He's 63.6%, almost 1,800 yards passing, 8 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Those numbers don't look great, but I do think that he's capable. Keep that in mind. At any point, okay, he could take off. So we have to have a really good game plan and we have to execute that game plan. So as far as rushing, these numbers come from Pro Football Focus. It doesn't take away his sacks and all that. It's the true scrambles and rushes and all that type of stuff. So 72 carries, 337 yards, 4.7 yards per carry with 5 rushing touchdowns. Part of the reason that they're so good inside of the red zone is because he's a threat to use his legs. Tennessee can do the same thing, but we have to have like a spy on him, I think, over the course of the game. Maybe not on every single play, but in certain situations, you definitely want to do that. Now, their running back who we talked about, number 6, Tony Blaylock. He's 5'11", 203, and he's a freshman. He has 93 carries for 401 yards, 4.3 yards per carry with 4 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, he's just like an average SEC running back. He's a young guy. I think that he runs hard, not going to run through a whole lot of contact, not going to make you miss too much, but he shows some good patience, has some good bursts. So wide receivers, man, number 5, I'm not even going to try to pronounce a whole lot of these names, but he is 5'10", 182, redshirt junior. He plays inside the slot, and he's a problem. 43 catches, 624 yards, 14.5 yards per catch with 5 touchdowns. So slot fade, our stars haven't done good in coverage. Really, they've been bad in coverage. That's going to be a problem. Some of the things within our structure is going to have to change, or some of the players that we have out there, something's going to have to change, or he can light us up. Obviously, with some of like the deeper passes, it takes more time. But on a slot fade, if you don't cover that right, bro, that's off the rip. That's that's instant. That's quick. So have to do much better than we have done previously versus that type of stuff. But they'll also throw some screens to him. Like I said, man, their wide receivers, like 2 of their starters, pretty small. They've got some big guys that are backing them up, but those guys aren't. They're not very good. But they are strong. But we have to be more physical at the point of contact. I definitely want to point that out. So next wide receiver, number 4, Deion Burks, 5'9", 188. He plays more on the outside, which sounds crazy, but he's a redshirt senior. 36 catches, 390 yards, 10.8 yards per catch with 2 touchdowns. Very similar to number 5, where he can do a whole lot of good things. He's going to be tough down the field. They got some dogs. They're small, but they're dogs. If you let them beat you off the line of scrimmage, that can be 6 points every single time. And then they're tied in number 12, Jaron, 6'2", 233. He's a senior, short for a tight end. All right, but he is like a bigger wide receiver. I mean, almost think about like Brew. Very similar. He might be faster than Brew. He's also bigger than Brew, but he runs excellent routes. All these guys, they all run excellent routes. They all have really good hands. I think that all of them, they're all tough. He has 26 catches for 394 yards, 14.6 yards per catch with no touchdowns. But yeah, we're gonna have to have some things dialed up. It's really just gonna be about the different coverages. It's gonna be a lot about the scheme. Now, do we have some guys that can maybe cover him downfield? I think that JP can. All right, playing a linebacker, I think that he could cover for sure that tight end. That's a good matchup. So we'll see. Do we feel more comfortable maybe going man if it's one of those types of situations, or some type of man zone hybrid, which I would love to see. So moving on. All right, this is the last thing here, and I'm going to take myself out of this. But this is just an overview of their offense. Mostly within their personnel groupings, you're only going to see a 1 tight end set. All right, about 82% of the time, or I'm sorry, even more than that, about 85% of the time. All right, and then with their 12 personnel, they're only doing that at about 12.4%, which means that this is a team that, while they have talked about being more physical within the running game, they're not really showing it with their personnel. They're not bringing out a whole bunch of big bodies. So I think that could play hopefully into Tennessee's favor. So, as far as their like run ratios, I know a lot of people don't understand what this stuff means, but it's just the way that they're blocking these different running plays. So inside zone, that's a zone blocking concept where you're not blocking an individual man. You're going to be blocking an area, and you're aiming for the inside of the offensive line. They do that a lot. Counter would be like, hey, we're showing like outside zone. So outside zone is at 15.3%. That just means that you're running zone blocking to the outside. So counter, a lot of times it shows, hey, this could be outside zone, but then, you go back to the other way. That's basically what that means. All right, and then man blocking, that's just hat on the hat, like everyone knows who they're picking up. They do that a lot within like their option game, but they also do some zone stuff within their option game. And then power, that just means that you have like lead blockers. Counter could mean that you have lead blockers too, and then, draw. So quarterback draws. Got to be very mindful of that, especially if they're going empty. So if you look back to the left with the personnel, the one that says 0-1, it means 0 running backs, 1 tight end, and that's typically going empty. So the draws and all that type of stuff, something for us to watch out for in this matchup. As far as the route tendencies, they love to throw the football vertically, so 26% of their routes will go vertical, and about 18% are going to be some hitches and comebacks. Outside of that, man, you got 12% that's crossing patterns. most of that will be like the shallow crossers, what people also call drags, and they will kind of like run some man beaters, where they will like cross each other. So two wide receivers on both sides or tight ends, whatever, but then they cross and you can pick people off with those types of concepts. So had to again man zone concepts and then slant. So a slant is just a route that 3 steps go to the middle. Tennessee star players haven't been good versus that. Again, man zone concepts. Give them the help with the freaking linebacker or even with the safety that will protect our middle so that we don't give up just easy stuff. Now, as far as their weaknesses, I think that their offensive line is average, and I think that might be being sort of kind. But if they go out there with those true freshmen playing at either or at both tackles, then our defensive end should absolutely eat. If they don't, I'm going to be pissed off because there is absolutely no excuse. Now, I think that their left tackle, he's good at run blocking, but pass blocking, he ain't very good. Like they're gonna need some freaking help for sure. But if those older guys, like number 71 at left tackle, if he rotates in, I think that he might hold up better. 66, I have no idea why he's not playing because from what I've seen, he hasn't been perfect, but he looks a lot better than number 70. Number 70 looks more like a guard to me. I think that he might be a guard that they moved to tackle. So that's what they're doing. Like they're moving their offensive linemen around to different spots. But either way, and then also too, I don't think that they get a whole lot of push as far as run blocking goes. It's not great, but their running concepts pretty versatile, like as y'all can see, but it's just not great. That's the whole point. So their running game, like I said, it's just okay because it is versatile, but it's not. It doesn't scare you too much. If you're disciplined, then you'll be fine. And then they got small wide receivers, they got some small tight ends could hurt them. This as far as blocking, like for the wide receivers. They'll come inside and try to block safety sometimes. Of course, on the outside on screens, they got to block corners and all that, star players. We got to be the bigger players. And then like for their tight ends within the running game, within the pass pro, they use those guys to help out blocking. We should be able to freaking, especially the starter, should be able to lift him up off his feet and throw him out the way. Like if our defensive ends, if they're rushing versus those guys, you should be able to just absolutely dominate from a pure physical standpoint. So hopefully Tennessee will do all those things. Now, last point here, y'all. They are too finesse. All right. To me, it's like a West Coast offense that they're trying to mimic some strength with. They're trying to mimic some power with. Like I said earlier, the personnel doesn't indicate that they're a real power team. Like power teams are going 12 personnel, 13 personnel. This is big boy football. They're not really doing that. And I don't want to make it sound like, man, they just don't have a running game. They're just not physical. That's not the case, but we should be definitely the more physical team in this game. All right, so last thing, y'all, I want to jump in here and just show you real quick how their stats look on a game-to-game basis, only focusing on these big games. So versus Michigan, all right, they were about 62% as far as the accuracy passing, 270 yards, 1 passing touchdown. They ran the football 40 times for 138 carries, 3.5 yards per carry with 2 rushing touchdowns. All right, now versus Auburn at about 67%, 271 yards passing, 1 touchdown. 26 carries for 32 yards, 1.2 yards per carry. So here they're going to be taking out yards for sacks and so on and so forth. But that's not good at all. Versus Texas, okay, about 54%, which looks horrible. That was their quarterback's first game coming off of the thumb injury and thumb surgery, but he still threw for 210 yards, 0 touchdowns. They had 30 rushes for 48 yards, 1.6 yards per carry. So none of that looks very good. Now, let's take a look at South Carolina, 70% passing, only 148 yards. Doesn't look great. And then rushing-wise, 40 carries, 171 yards, 4.3 yards per, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So it's their running game has started to ramp up over these past couple of weeks. But last game versus Ole Miss, only 53% accurate, 233 yards, 1 touchdown. So really in the second half, they started to do some very nice things. 28 carries, 136 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. With 2 touchdowns. So we want for the stat line to look a lot more like this, where they are pass first and not run first. And I wanted for it to be that way because we're being dominant versus their running game. I want for them to feel like, man, we can't run the football at all. But with all that being said, let me get to my final thoughts and what Tennessee needs to do to find the most success in this game. It always starts up front. Our defensive line has let us down for the past couple of weeks. Not just with the pass rush, obviously that has been like lackluster, but I'd say even more so for me personally, our defensive tackles broke my heart last week, y'all, getting moved 5 to 6 yards off of the football. I don't know if they were sick. I don't know if they were tired. I have no idea what happened. And it's maybe not even tired because they showed good effort in running to the football on screens and all that, but something was just off. because we don't really, I've never seen us get moved 5 to 6 yards on such a consistent basis. Yeah, it was versus double teams, but even versus the double teams, if we can just not get pushed around up front, I'd say I mean, Tennessee's probably going to win this game. And then the second part of this, y'all, is on the second and third level. So linebackers and secondary players have got to tackle much better. All right. I mean, obviously, it's been pretty bad over the course of the year. Actually, I went back and looked up to this point last year. Our missed tackle rate was at 14%. It's 14% this season as well. Now we've missed more tackles just because we've been on the field longer with our defense. So, the offense can obviously help us out, kind of like they did last week, or they tried to do last week by having some longer drives and just keep our defense off the field as much as possible. But tackling is something that, as a coach, I mean, every team works on fundamentals of tackling every single day in practice. And I know that they're emphasizing some of this stuff, but it's really down to the players. The only thing that the coaches might be able to do, something that I would maybe try to do, is, okay, hey, listen, if y'all miss a tackle and you don't have the proper fundamentals, you're either done for the year, okay, or you're going to get fined, or you're going to have a really hefty punishment as far as extra work, whatever. But maybe that's about all that we can do, because it really is. It's just a conscious effort. The first thing that football players learn when they start playing football is how to tackle properly, right? It's the proper fundamentals. So they've been, getting the reps at it for a very, very long time. You just can't dive at people's ankles. You can't dive at people's feet. And if you are going to go super low, you have to at least wrap, okay? You always have to wrap up on every single tackle. You have to wrap up. But wrap and roll, I think that our cornerbacks could benefit from doing more of that. And that's something that I see us practicing on over the spring. We saw it in fall camp, or, whatever, over the summer. We see it in practice all the time. So they do work on it. But you just have to exercise it in actual practice, which we haven't done. But if we do those two things, y'all, I can almost guarantee you Tennessee will win this game. Like, it's one of those situations. And just to kind of like add some extra, maybe like positivity to this, I love the way that our linebackers played last week. They didn't look horrible. It's never going to be perfect. You're going to give up some stuff. They weren't really covering grass. And whenever I say covering grass, I mean that in zone defense, there's an area that each player has to cover. Now, covering grass is if, hey, there's people in your area and you're not covering them. It's not if, hey, this is my area, no one's here, but there's someone somewhere else. You don't leave from out of your zone to go cover somebody else, because the coach calls the zones for a reason. The coach knows where the holes are in the zones, and the offense is going to try to go to those holes. That's like one of the main points in running zone is, hey, we're going to give this up, and we're going to come up and we're going to tackle, which goes back to my point. We have to tackle better. But so, we didn't cover grass as much. We weren't perfect with our run fits, but I think better out in space, we looked a lot better. And that's going to be a huge part of this game. So AC, I don't think that he's going to go. And if he doesn't go, obviously, man, I love him. I think that he's a good player when he's fully healthy. Right now, he's not fully healthy. He hasn't played very well since he's been banged up. So let the other guys come in, let them be fresher, and I think that they have more speed, for sure. And we're going to need that in this game. And, pretty much outside of that, I would say that our star players, huge game for them. They're going to have to cover in that slot. They've got to play better. The structure of our defense will have to probably change some, or the personnel's going to have to change some so that we can cover that. So it'll be an interesting matchup, but hopefully y'all can join us here pretty shortly for our watch party, where we're going to be breaking down the Oklahoma offense versus Ole Miss. But that's it for me. Y'all please leave your thoughts down in the comment section. And as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will be talking to y'all shortly. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.